2 tries apiece, 2 out of 2 conversions for Penrith, 1 out of 2 for Souths, and a missed 2-point field goal right at the end of the match there. Both teams had a penalty goal each. 53% of possession went Penrith's way, 47% to Souths, which obviously evened itself up at the back end of the game because Penrith were pretty dominant in possession for the first at least half of the game. So we had 83% completion to 74%, 34 out of 41 sets played, 32 out of 43, 290 run meters in the positive for Penrith, 146 post-contact meters in the positive for Penrith. 2 line breaks by Penrith, 4 by Souths, 23 tackle busts by Penrith, and 59 by Souths. Again, I think a flood of those were at the back end last 10 minutes of the game where they were sort of breaking tackles at will there at the back end of the game. But we had 6 offloads to 7, 5 forced dropouts by Penrith, and 0 by Souths. No 40-20s, 356 tackles played, 373, 3 ruck infringements to 1, 2 inside the 10s by Penrith, none by Souths, 3 penalties conceded by Penrith and 2 by Souths. 7 errors to 11. Appy made 51 tackles. Murray made 53. Brian To'o with 238 meters, and Tom Burgess with 139 for Souths. Appy made 51 tackles, but he missed 14 in this game, and Cleary missed 9 and made 17. There's 31 missed tackles from the starting pack from Penrith. Gagai made 6, missed 3, and Jacob Host missed 4 and made 19.
We said we talked, and I just saw this. When would it have been we mentioned that in order for Souths to win these sort of games, they need to spread the ball early? Would that have been around 20?
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 weeks out before the finals. Yeah,
and then they turned around and bashed a couple of teams. But the story of this game to me a little bit was their forward pack did get owned, and they missed an opportunity of not going wide early, or at times early in sets. Do you sort of feel that a little bit?
A little bit. I think collectively their pack was as a group, they were probably better than Penrith's pack. Like if you matched all of the 7 forwards up against each other, but Penrith just had a couple of standouts in your Fisher Harris, Liam Martin there didn't get a lot of ball, but he had some devastating runs off his line where he's making 15, 20 meters. And then your outside backs jumped in and helped them. Obviously, Brian To'o did what he does. Appy got out a few times and made some nice meters, but I thought South Kulamatangi and Murray were probably 2 of the better ones for South, and I thought they were quite good.
I thought Murray was the best player in the field.
I thought Murray was pretty close to being the best player in the field too. If he'd had maybe a run or an offload that had sort of sparked something for him, then you probably would have gone that way.
It looked like he was going to, without going into too deep in the game, it looked like he was going to get it to that last 5 minutes where he just went through the Sydney heads there. And
I think he just
if he had support and
tackling himself into the ground, mate. He obviously Cook made 40 odd as well, but if you go through the rest of their pack, I think most of them are only making 15, 20 tackles. So that's something Souths, I think, really need. They need to find one more player in there to take some of that load off Murray and free him up a little bit in attack.
I felt their forwards really struggled to get end ascendancy, and Penrith forwards weren't necessarily that much better, but their back 3 were just so good. And maybe that's a result of, well, let's start from the start. If you ask me, well, I'll ask you, what was the one deciding factor of the grand final?
It was the kicking game from Cleary.
Yeah, I would say the same thing.
The field position that Penrith were able to just continually put Souths in their corners. They were taking bombs on their own try line for a good 20 minutes there at the start of the game. That's basically all they were doing, was catching bombs on the try line and either getting forced back in goal, or they were, working it out from their own end. Whereas Penrith seemed to be catching the ball a lot on their own sort of 20-metre line. And by the time they've caught it and run back, they're 30 metres off their own goal line, where Souths were just getting pegged on their own goal line for the majority of the game, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought that was a major difference. And the counter is Penrith's back 3 being able to, and even at the back end, make some key decisions when to pass the right time. But Edwards, obviously, 2-0 and Crichton were tremendous.
I'd also add Penrith's line speed. When they did have Souths down on their goal line, they were off their line that quick, and they were hit. The Souths were only making 5 metres before Penrith's line were hitting them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, once they hit them, they drove them back as well. So,
yeah, and I think that set the platform. And the difference was Cleary was able to get, when Penrith did struggle, Cleary came out with the perfect kick every time. Even in attacking position, all his bombs he put up, he never gave away a repeat set I can remember. They always seem to come down right at the right spot. and
Yeah.
and then they're
I
able to
don't think
hammer
there
'em.
was one seven
I think
tackle
there was
set for South.
7 tackles, I should say, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think there was 5 repeat sets to Penrith versus none for Souths.
Absolutely. Yep.
Did it feel like injury or pressure was the key point there for Reynolds kicking?
A little bit of both, I think. Penrith did put a lot more pressure on Reynolds, and that's one thing I didn't understand from South. So that would have been, I thought that would have been one of their key markers for the entire game.
Yep.
They would have been told to have 2 and 3 blokes running at Cleary every time he touched the ball. Luai did take a few nice clearing kicks away from him and sort of took a little bit of pressure off him, but I was surprised the amount of kick pressure that Cleary got, that Reynolds got compared to the kick pressure that Cleary was getting.
Yeah.
The Souths had Penrith were putting so much more kick pressure on than what Souths were.
And it just surprises me that there wouldn't have been one bloke given the job. And it's hard because Cam Murray probably had 5 jobs to do. But
True.
one bloke given the task to just stay on Nathan the whole time. It felt like a sliding doors sort of game at times, though, because there were moments it could have gone either way.
Absolutely.
The Luai, and obviously there ended up being a correct review, but the Luai knock on was almost a 12-point turnaround if given you would have given South's possession, because the things you'll say is South's, I think they're down Penrith's end maybe 4 times and scored twice. Probably should have scored a third time, the one that went into touch.
Yep.
And if that goes the other way, I think Souths win. There was a tremendous kick from Reynolds at wrong-footed Edwards. If that goes into touch and they get the 40-20, I think Souths win.
Absolutely.
And the way the momentum was swinging at the end there, like if Reynolds kicks that goal, Souths win.
I was half expecting South to probably put on 2 tries in that last 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, and I think,
as I said, they were coming back through the middle and they were breaking tackle after tackle.
Yeah,
but the Penrith scramble was good.
Just a couple of key points, I guess. So I thought Cody Walker, apart from the intercept, he was tremendous. He was
fantastic.
As good as he's been most of the year. It looked dangerous. That left edge looked dangerous the whole time. They just didn't get a lot of ball, and that was back to my earlier point, sort of 10 minutes ago, that if they had it wasn't until they needed to score that they tried that edge more. And if they had perhaps tried it there early and tried a few of those plays from the 50, 60 or 50 metre mark, that there might have been. It looked like that was going to crack any time they went there. So perhaps that could have been targeted a little bit better. Any other takeaways from you?
Momirovski didn't have his best game in defence, and as you mentioned, I'm surprised they didn't go there a lot more often. Reynolds' passing game wasn't great either. I thought he sort of did go missing a little bit, to be honest, and Cody had to take up a little bit more slack there. I don't know whether they probably should have directed Cook to get out a little bit more often and try to link up with Cody and get something going on there. But the defence was the major part from both teams, realistically. Both teams defended that well that it made it very hard for either side to sort of get any sort of ascendancy. At the most, they might poke their nose through when they were going through the forwards, but most of the raids that went out to the edges got shut down pretty well.
They looked dangerous at times, South, when they did turn that ball back in through the ruck. As I mentioned the Murray one earlier, there was a couple of times. Look, they probably missed the batting ram in Latrell there because he might have targeted through there once or twice. I'll save him for later because I don't want to throw. Well. I was going to say we've brought up. It's a nothing conversation because he wasn't playing.
Yep.
Does Souths win if he does play?
I think I think they would have, to be honest. You saw the way Cody palmed off Cleary. That would have been Mitchell's. As soon as Mitchell would have seen that he would have just been coming all day. And obviously Blake Tuff's not big enough to be able to play that role to try and steamroll over the top of Cleary. I'm surprised they didn't line up some back rowers and even Gay Guy coming back at an angle at him and stuff like that. I thought they missed a trick there. I think it was one of tactically it was probably one of South's worst games in the last probably 4 to 6 weeks, to be honest.
I'd agree with that. And on that left edge, even that pass Cody throws into touch, more often than not, he's going that short one to Latrell, who would have just taken Momirovski with him.
He did do that 2 or 3 times though, and that was a result of the inside pressure from Cleary and his second rower there. But
we talked about Momirovski's defence, and actually talk about lucky charm. He's been to 3 grand finals, 1 or 3 with 3 different clubs. Roosters, Melbourne, and Penrith.
Oh yeah, he has too.
Yeah. So Tigers didn't want him, but
He wasn't horrible. He did do a fairly good job, but there was a couple of times where he sort of got himself into a sticky position there and left Crichton sort of wondering what was going on, especially with that last try at the back end there. He definitely jammed in and left Crichton on his own, and there wasn't much Crichton could do about that. But the same could be said about Graham with the first try of Burton.
I was going to say, given the raps we gave Campbell Graham last month, what do you make of his defensive decisions at points?
I think it was in his own head for the first half an hour, to be honest. So they were constantly under pressure, and he just seemed to get. He did obviously made 2 or 3 glaring mistakes. He seemed to get it back together. He made some crucial tackles as well to shut down some Penrith attack where they were looking threatening. But yeah, maybe a pass mark, but it wouldn't be much more than a pass mark.
Yeah. We talked about the back markers. 238 metres for 2-0, massive. Dylan Edwards is revealed as a broken foot the whole final series. 230 metres. Didn't look, I don't think he looked 100% safe, but he was probably 85% safe and produced, or he's a grand final winning fullback and produced a fair enough effort.
He did look threatening at times in and around the ruck off some inside balls and a couple of popped offloads where he did make some nice meters back through the middle. But as I mentioned, both sides scramble. Every time there was a half break made, there was 2 or 3 jerseys there trying to pull them down. So
yeah, did South miss the trick not starting Tom Burgess in hindsight, or is it that too hard to
no,
quantify?
I don't think so. I think they probably could have given him a few more minutes than what they gave him.
Well, that's funny. Yeah, he played 42. Fisher Harris 36 minutes was the one I was a bit shocked by.
He did have quite good impact when he was carrying the ball, though.
Yeah.
Kick out, not so much impact with carrying the ball, but he made some really nice tackles. He'd obviously been told to make sure he doesn't give away any penalties because I don't think he tackled much higher than the hips the entire night, but he put some nice shots on.
And one really important cover tackle there, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he was really good. He'd definitely been told this is your job and that's all you're going to do, and he did it well. So he wasn't the most impressive player on the field, but I thought he did have an impact when he was out there. So.
And just looking through other couple of key stats, actually, what do you think about Tyron May when he dropped that ball and thought, here it is?
No, mate. I've mentioned a couple of times during the year, I don't think he's a first grade footballer, to be honest. He should be playing reserve grade somewhere else. He doesn't seem to add a lot. His defense is okay. His defense is probably first grade standard, but his attack's definitely not, and his decision making is definitely not either. So I thought he possibly lost in the game there, to be honest. They were in a prime position because Burton had just made that cover tackle and put him over the sideline, which changed the whole complexion of the game. Penrith now had the ball with what was about 15 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, camped on South's line, and second tackle, he drops it directly under the post. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, it was not more than a minute and a half later, and Cody throws the cutout. But you wished he'd thrown them to hit the first man instead of going at the back.
Matt Burton was tremendous. I thought his kick chase was outstanding.
He did lead the kick chase a lot of the
which South didn't have all night either. It's one thing to have the kicks, but South's kick chase I thought was disappointing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where there was just either none or Totola or Osua were leading the kick chase.
I thought Penrith should have probably gone to Paulo a little bit more than they did. Just about every time they kicked to him, they seemed to get a result, but they only went there probably 4 or 5 times where I thought as soon as it happened that would have just been the focus for the rest of the game. But
yeah, and without ref shaming, sure, I thought for sure if consistency was any, and the thing we've said about rules is would you blow them in a grand final? Every game this year from round, what was it, 7, the Matt Burton hit, it was a penalty for your life, contact with the head and ignored.
That shouldn't be a penalty any time of the year, in my opinion. The bloke has been folded in half. He was a metre off the ground. He dropped from, being 2 metres high to less than a metre off the ground. And then he cops it. Oh, was that the kick out one? And he cops a forearm across the side of the head.
That was kick out.
Yeah. When they go from being, from being standing upright to being almost down at the ground, like it's incidental.
But having watched obviously 225 games this year, that should have been a penalty. And and at the time a key chance. But
Well, if you're going to call them all year, yeah, you should be calling them in the grand final.
Yeah.
But I had no issues with the way it was refereed, to be honest. I'd prefer it to be refereed
Well,
that way, but I want them to do it all year.
and
So.
the other one that I will applaud him was when Luai decided to lay down and try and claim a crush.
For the crusher, yes.
A good, what was it, 90 seconds?
Yep.
And that's the result of. I'm not blaming him, but it's a result of the environment they've created all year. I will say. Well, we'll wrap up our final.
Even the missus was screaming at Luai to get up and play the ball. Well, she's a Penrith fan,
and I had no skin in the game, but I that made me very angry.
No.
Much else to talk about? I think we've probably covered it pretty well, but
I think both teams looked fairly fatigued, to be honest.
Both teams were cooked in 20 minutes to go.
There's more injuries than what anyone knows about. I know they've come out and spoken about Edwards and Tuo and all the rest of it, but I don't be surprised if there's a lot more. Half of both teams would probably go for clean-up surgery after this one, to be honest, because they looked like a lot of guys that was either completely exhausted or carrying injury by the last 20 minutes of this game. So
actually, I didn't mention, but you did touch on how easily Cleary fell off the Walker run.
Yeah.
I could not believe they did not double down on that at all. I think I messaged you at the time and said there's blood in the water now, because I thought, isn't that just like absolute? There it is.
Yeah.
There's a big red X on him, and no one ran at him. I can't recall him even having to make another tackle after that.
No, that's right. And that's where, as I said, I thought South missed the trick tactically in this game, because I would have had both my second rowers move to that side of the field and just go at him for the next 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Every second tackle would be making him make a tackle.
Yeah.
Running 100%. Inside angles, outside angles on both shoulders, and just going, there you go. But didn't happen. So.
Well, final thoughts on this game, and then we'll just touch on both clubs quickly. You got to give kudos to Penrith that they went the hard way. They went through the 3 toughest games of the finals, and they won all 3. So I can't take anything away from their premiership. They were the best team for, like I said, probably the first 12 weeks of the comp, and then the toughest team at the last 4 weeks of the comp. So you've got to give them kudos for that. Final word on the game in your 3-2-1s.
Yeah, I'm saying with you, mate. Absolutely, they were the toughest team for the entire final series. And you mix that in with the skill and the aggression that they get out of their front row. Obviously, there's a few concerning signs about that. I don't know whether it's teams have worked out the way that they structure their attack, or if it was just a thing with fatigue and injury at the back end of the year that their attack fell away as dramatically as it did. But they were good enough to hold on in defence. So
I think Luai's form's a lot to do with that.
Yeah,
there's games where Cleary was happy to sort of be the general and let Luai create things. And
this was one of Luai's better games in a while, to be honest. He did get out and run, and he created a few issues for the South's defence. Yeah. Fantastic game of football. Both teams absolutely put in everything they had, which is what we expected. Excuse me. I thought the game might have broken apart with a few more points towards the back end, but I think both teams were just that fatigued that they just couldn't get there in the end of the day. So Penrith did a good enough job to get as far out in front. I thought they probably should have won by another try or two, but
yeah, if it had been 18-6 halftime, I think it probably should have been, to be honest. And I thought South would have taken that as a win, given how much momentum and possession Penrith had. They did well. They've got to be incredibly proud of what they achieved to that point. And like I said, to bounce the ball or a bit of luck the other way, and they probably win. And I think, like I said, if Reynolds kicks that last goal, I think momentum's on their side and they score again.
Well, the fact that it goes down to the very last 5 seconds of the game and it still could have gone either way, with, as you mentioned, with the bounce of the ball.
And it did have the fairy tale ending with the potential of Reynolds having that 2-point field goal.
Yes.
But apparently he kicks him against Tigers.
So. He didn't hit that one very well. But if you do want anyone lining up to take it, it would be him. But he didn't get that one right, that's for sure. Both teams probably deserve to win, and only one could. So,
look, I'm giving Nathan Cleary 3 points because I thought his kicking game, as I said, was a difference.
Yes.
2 points for me for Cameron Murray.
Absolutely.
And 1 point. That's a very good question. Look, I could almost go Burton, or I could go even. Who are you thinking for one?
To be honest, I had Cody Walker as my 1 point.
Yeah,
I
well,
thought,
that's fair enough.
I know it sounds a bit funny when you end up giving two Souths players points in in the 3-2-1, but I thought Walker was as good as Cleary, and if that last pass hits the winger instead of Crichton, he gets the 3 points, and Cleary ends up with the one. So
yeah, no, fine with that. We will tally them up and announce them on Wednesday night, potentially even on next Wednesday, actually, for our player of the finals.
yeah,
Or on
the
our
only other one
socials.
would have been Burton, possibly Toto. But
Yeah, and that's a funny because even looking back today, if Crichton doesn't take the intercept, Johnson scores.
Yep.
And I would say if Johnson scores, South probably win by 10. I think they would break them. So anyway, it's all ifs and buts and what might have been, which is what I
Well
seem to be
done,
good at.
Penrith Panthers.
Yeah, congratulations to them. Outstanding effort. And a quick word on both teams for next year. So Penrith lose Burton, potentially have some issues retaining Kickow, but I think they're going to try and move on a couple others instead. Burton a big out, I guess. Stephen Crichton
More than likely go back into
moves
the
back to
centres.
centres, who's grown a leg recently. So they'll be more than competitive again. They'll be top.
Oh,
3 or 4,
absolutely. You wouldn't be. I'd be surprised if they miss the top 4. If they do, it'd only be sort of 5th or 6th at the absolute worst. But they'll be there at the end of the year next year for sure.
My concern is Souths. I think this was their
Mine
last
too.
shot for a while. What are you thinking for
Yep.
next year?
Yeah, absolutely. Gay guy going out. He's been one of their strike weapons for the entire year in the centres. You got Reynolds, as we mentioned. Kicking game was probably only second to one player, and that was Nathan Cleary for the entire season. And even then, at times, he's been better than Cleary. So he's if not the best, the second best kicking game in the comp, and you're going to take that out of your side. We saw that Cody Walker doesn't really kick that much. I'm not sure what kind of kicking game Taft's got. Apparently, he's going to go into 7, but we'll have to see how that works for him. As I said, they need someone to come in and help Murray with his tackles. He's just burning himself out, and they're missing a trick with him in attack. He could be an explosive player in attack for them, but they make him do too much work in defence. You've got Benji going as well and Bennett. So I've got concerns. I think they'll lose a few spots and be back towards the bottom of the 8. The bottom of the top 8 at the end of next season. Obviously, we'll want to see how they kick off next year, but Reynolds and Gay Guy are big outs for me.
Reynolds is a massive out because we've talked about it a lot. Losing that team has the tendency to, I don't say panic, but go a little bit off the rails without leadership, and Reynolds was the key to that. It's a lot on Cam Murray again, who's already carrying a lot to then have to control all these guys. And Anthony Milford, should he still be here, will be coming in. So that's I think it's a concern for Souths. The saving grace is realistically still only 6 or 7 teams that can finish in the top 6 or 7. So
absolutely.
Just how good they go, we'll wait and see. That's our look back at grand final time, Barney. You want to finish on here?
As I mentioned before, well done, Penrith. I look forward to meeting up with everyone down the pub, and we'll hear all about it in a couple of weeks from now. But